Good afternoon, everyone. This is Nitha Ramachandra from the NR Sports Show, alongside with our co-host Kia Lyons. This is episode 979. We are joined by a really special guest. His name is Wes Pritchett. He's a former Notre Dame star linebacker. He also played in the NFL, Miami Dolphins, Buffalo Bills, Atlanta Falcons, and he got to play underneath Coach Lou Holtz. Man, what a legendary coach! And we're going to get to his Notre Dame story. What a great college career and NFL career, and really looking forward to this interview. And shout out to Kia for making this happen. So first of all, Wes, thank you for joining us today. It's truly an honor, and looking forward to this. And fans can tune in on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and they can ask questions to Wes on my Spreaker app. So Wes, how are you and your family doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem.
I apologize. I'm in my house and my dog has decided to play with her toys in the background. And I don't know if I can get up and lady, come here.
And she's awesome.
She's been cooped up.
Wes,
sorry about that.
Wes, I think it's a great lead in because we want to start off with you growing up and your background. Tell us about how you got into football. You're such an athlete. You do everything. So I think it'd be incredible for the audience to hear about your start as a kid.
If you want to keep going, I kind of like the way you were going with that. I'd much rather hear you tell me how good I am. I'm joking.
You are awesome. You golf, you bowl, your kids bowl.
Story is, I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. My brother and I it was just my brother and I. So my dad was very much into sports. He played football and baseball, and he subjected my brother and I to everything. We played football, basketball, baseball, swam, and played golf. So I swam competitively. I played golf competitively. I mean, all this stuff was, competitive. I played football, basketball, baseball during the school year, and then we were members of a country club. So we would swim on the swim team in the morning and play golf in the afternoons. And my brother and I were actually, not to brag, but I was player of the year in the state of Georgia when I was 14 in golf.
Oh. Wow, that's incredible. That makes sense.
My brother was state champion in swimming and breaststroke. So, it was like, we weren't just out there, we were playing. We were very competitive. So I grew up at Atlanta Country Club, and the pro there was Davis Love Sr. Okay. So I grew up playing with Mark and Davis Love, which, obviously Davis has had an incredible career, and it ends up that his father was he died early in a plane crash, but he was one of the best teachers of his time. So, whatever that means.
That's special.
So I was very involved in all this. I really liked all sports. And then I'll never forget the first year I went to my private school, Westminster, in 7th grade. We won the state championship. And I remember they had all these pep rallies, and the quarterback was dating the best looking cheerleader. And I thought, I really think I like football the best. And, thankfully, my body kind of grew into it. I'm kind of an interesting story in the sense that I graduated from high school at 17. I was very skinny, 6'5", like 200 pounds.
Okay.
I got hurt my senior year, so I only played 2 games my senior year. And I don't know how I got recruited. I really, it was so different back then. I just started receiving letters. I don't know how I got ranked. I don't know how. I really have no idea, but it worked out.
Where did you get hurt?
I played tight end. Hang on one second. I've got to put my dog up.
Okay. Yeah. And she is awesome. I wish she was in the video like she was before.
I don't know what you know about German short-haired pointers, but she will not stop.
She is competitive like her father.
She's very competitive. She's been cooped up all morning, and she's 1.5 years old, and she needs to run about 15 miles, and she hasn't. So anyway, I played tight end. I got recruited as a tight end also. So so I played tight end and linebacker. Anyway, I got hurt, played 2 games, but then somehow I played in the Georgia All-Star game, which was like the top, 60 players, caught a touchdown in Athens from the guy that lived across the street from me was a guy named Dan Perez, who was a quarterback at Marist High School, which was our arch rival my whole life. He lived across the street from me. Literally, he threw me the touchdown pass in Sanford Stadium, which was kind of neat.
That's cool.
Yeah. Anyway, So I ended up going to Notre Dame. I got recruited pretty heavily. I got up there. They looked at me and said, yeah, you're redshirted. I was 11th string. I was the only scholarship player on the scout team. I was Rudy. I got my brains beat in for the year. I didn't travel. It was horrible. I wanted to come home. I tried to get my transcript. I was going to transfer to the University of Georgia, and I'll never forget. I had this epiphany moment or enlightening moment or whatever, where burning bush, let's say, moment, where my dad got on the phone and said, "Wesley, quit feeling sorry for yourself. By God, you made a decision. You're going to live with it. Make it work. That's it. I don't want to hear about this anymore." Click. And he said it with probably 10 or 11 cuss words in there, but
right.
Anyway, that was it. I quit feeling sorry for myself. I was like, I'm going to work harder than everybody else. I'm not going to give up. And I just committed myself. And next year I played a little bit. I played on all the special teams, and then I lettered, and then I started splitting time. And then I started the last 2.5 years that I was at Notre Dame. We won the national championship. I was an All-American. I led the team in tackles, got drafted, so worked out all right.
Absolutely. You're in books. You got, Lou loved you. You're the star.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
I went from the outhouse to the penthouse. Let's just put it that way.
You got featured on ESPN too a couple of times, which we'll get to. But I want to ask you about your tight end and linebacker position. Obviously, you chose linebacker, but did you ever think to yourself maybe you could have been like a hybrid type of player, played tight end and linebacker at the same time?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm big size wise. I wasn't overly fast, but I was very quick and I understood the game. I think I could have played tight end. I do, because I had really good hands. I wasn't blazing fast, but I was a good blocker. I just call myself a football player. I liked football. I liked everything about it. I liked practice, and everybody thought I was nuts. I liked hitting. I liked blocking. I just love the game. I talked to my brother about it. He played quarterback and he played at Boston College. He's like, I hated football.
Yeah, that was my question. So when you got recruited, what was he thinking? Like when you got that call from your dad, your brother's awesome. What did he say?
Well, I mean, I don't think he was very involved. He was 3 years behind me in school. So I didn't listen. I didn't really give a shit what he said anyway. So I didn't talk. I can tell you, none of my decisions were made as a result of talking to my brother, at least not at that time. I mean, back then, as I look back on all of it, when you say things happen for a reason, I did not want to go to Notre Dame. I did not. I was 17 years old. I grew up in the South. Wow. I wanted to go to the University of Georgia, where all my friends were, where all the pretty girls were. Georgia back then was very good. Those were the Herschel Walker years. So my senior year in high school was 1984. Herschel, I think his last year was 83. The Dogs had won the national championship in 80. It was a fun time to be in Athens. I think every time's a fun time to be in Athens. But, I remember my high school coach who had grown up in Chicago said to me, "Wes, you want to go to a school where if you got hurt the first day, you'd be glad you got an education from there." So, as I started really sitting down and thinking about it, my trips, I could have gone anywhere. I went to Duke, Vandy, Notre Dame, and then Georgia and Florida State. It was kind of a weird combination, but it was like 2 fun schools and 3 serious schools. And Vandy and Duke were terrible, but they were great schools. So I don't know. It worked out. Notre Dame was 100% the right place for me to be. It was the best school of the 5 in my opinion anyway. Certainly for football, to play Division I football and get a great education. So, and when I got done, when I was playing in the NFL after 3 or 4 years, I kept, wasn't making money. We kept getting hurt. Obviously had an economics degree from Notre Dame. And my best friend from high school had gone to Georgia, then University of Chicago, and he had gotten a job on Wall Street, and he kept telling me how much money all these guys were making and what he was doing. And finally I came home that summer. He had moved back to Atlanta, moved in with him. And I was like, that's it. I quit football. I'm going to print a resume. I'm either going to go to MBA school or I'm going to go to Wall Street. And I got Lou Holtz to write letters of recommendation. I called the athletic director at Notre Dame, Dick Rosenthal. was an old Wall Street guy. I think he worked at Goldman Sachs. And I just literally, they got me a few interviews. I interviewed with a few people I knew in banking and finance down here. They referred me to a couple of guys in New York. I went, and my brother was already working for Kidder Peabody in New York, lived on his sofa, and literally just pounded the pavement for for a month or two. And I ended up getting a job offer in a training program at Kidder Peabody in New York. And there was, 30 something people in the training program. And I was, two of us didn't have MBAs from Ivy League schools. So
Wow.
that's pretty good. So Notre Dame paid off immediately.
Oh yeah.
Literally.
And Lou Holtz, that's amazing. I can't wait to talk about Lou.
Yeah, Lou Holtz is a legend. I can't believe, man, he does a great job on College Game Day too. But we are live with former Notre Dame, former NFL linebacker Wes Pritchett. We already have a fan question in here. Someone wants to know, who did you look up to as a football player back in your era?
Who was like my idol as a football player? Jack Lambert. Jack Lambert didn't have the front teeth, played for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like most kids had like the pretty boy players up on their wall. I had like the ugliest, meanest guy there was. So he was one of my, I love Jack Lambert.
Wow.
What did that mean to you, Wes? Did he represent
Dick
just
Butkus,
like a total
Dick Butkus
toughness?
also. What's that?
Big Bucket.
Oh yeah. I was just saying, like, did he represent, like, so when you went after, once you went after football with your competitive nature, did he just represent this strength and like having him on your wall?
Yeah, and I think, and going back to my high school coach who was from Chicago, he would play he would get out the old projectors the night before our high school football games, and he would play highlights of Dick Butkus on the 8mm film, literally like the black and white 8mm film.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so I don't know. I guess I was not a nice person on the football field. I like to kill people. And those two guys were the two meanest, toughest guys I knew. So
wow.
Well, you did a great job at it. What was your favorite experience playing in the NFL?
Going to Wall Street.
It was a grind. I mean, it's a grind.
I mean, look, the NFL when I played is not the NFL of today. Those kids, they don't hit, they make 10 times more money. It's a business. They get all these endorsements. We were playing in like the Middle Ages. I didn't make a lot of money. I tell you, so I play at Notre Dame. We have literally national reporter, like we had a national press conference every week. I was on ESPN at Notre Dame all the time, getting interviewed. The players all went to class. Like we win the national championship. That year they handed out more. We played Southern Cal in '88. The year we won the national championship. We were number 1. Southern Cal was number 2. 10-0 in the Coliseum. Supposedly they handed out more press passes for that game than they did the Super Bowl. I mean, we were a big deal. So when I got to the NFL, it was like, this is it was a joke. Seriously.
Yeah,
so I get drafted by their facilities were worse than my high school.
Wow.
They had our weight room at the Dolphins facility where we had two-a-days was literally had a tarp over the top, rusted weights, and I had to get the janitor to give me the key to open the gate to lift weights.
Wow.
We didn't even have a strength coach. Strength coach was the janitor. I think I'm joking. I'm not joking.
That's incredible. Now they have incredible
my NFL experience. It was horrible. I was like, this sucks.
Wow.
And then I played for the Bills, and that was all right. I mean, that was fun. They had a lot of great players, but look, back in my day, I mean, I never made over $125,000, I don't think. And I remember when I was playing for the Bills, I had a dislocated right shoulder and a broken left hand. And I'm thinking to myself, well, it really isn't that fun. So my experience in the NFL was not great. Maybe you could say that I shouldn't have been up there, but I had a great college experience.
You should have. You got lots of awards from Notre Dame, and I think it's awesome. You mentioned Herschel Walker. We were talking about earlier when I was flying out. I was coming home from New York, I was on the way to go to one of your award ceremonies, and I ran into Herschel. So it's funny. I mean, you definitely were meant to be there. You have that. I don't know if I know anybody more competitive. Like seriously, like you've got that competitive streak. Your kids, they do golf. It's in your blood to have been there for sure.
Well, you know, it's interesting.
And you got books written about you, and you're the star. So it's like that's your mindset. They weren't ready for Wes.
I want to tell you something about Herschel Walker is a special person, and he was inspirational to me as a kid growing up too, because he was from Georgia. He's a phenomenal story kid from literally nothing.
Yeah.
Financially, but apparently he had been given a lot with God-given gifts and a family and somebody raised that boy right. But anyway, so Herschel was a big part of when I was getting recruited. The reason that I was interested in the University of Georgia, and I've run into him many times since then. And he's just a class act. In fact, we were at the, I can't remember where we were. I think we were at the College Football Hall of Fame. I took the kids to an event and Herschel was there and he took pictures with them. And this was only like probably 2 or 3 years ago. He still looked like he could play. I don't know if you've seen pictures of Herschel in his 50s as an MMA fighter. He looks like a 18-year-old. I mean, he looks like a 20-something-year-old, just ripped kid. And there's rumors that even going back like 5 years ago that he would go out and work out with the team and still could beat everybody on the team in the 4-4 like their sprints.
Wow.
He's incredible. He came up to me. I had Eagles on my bag and he came and started talking to me and I was like, Herschel. And I gave him a punch on his arm and my hand was like broken.
Yeah. That's right. He played for the Eagles, right? He played for Philly.
He played for the Philly.
Yeah.
He played for Eagles.
Yeah.
He also played for the Cowboys.
Greatness attracts greatness. That's cool. That's very cool.
He's a neat guy. So anyway, I don't know. I kind of jumped all around on that. Anyway, my experience at Notre Dame was amazing. Let me talk about Lou.
Tell us your best experience at Notre Dame.
Well, I have a lot, but let me just tell you something about why my experience. Well, first of all, the University of Notre Dame is a special place. It's unlike anywhere else. I don't know how to explain it. I grew up in the South. I'm not Catholic. Didn't know that much about it. Having now been there and been associated with it for 30 plus years, it's a place that is it doesn't have fraternities or sororities. So there's not a lot of cliques. People aren't like sort of subdivided like they inherently are at these other schools. I've thought about this a lot. So I think this is at least my conclusion. I think it has a religious sort of thing that bonds people a little bit. But it's just the experience of being there. I think everybody that's there loves Notre Dame. It's weird, and I became one of those people. And it's a really special place. It's beautiful. I don't know how to explain it, but anyway, it's been very good to me. And my father wanted me to go to Notre Dame. He absolutely was hell-bent on me going to Notre Dame. And he always said to me, he's like, Wesley, just think, he's like, you sacrifice 4 years, it's going to pay off for 40 years or the rest of your life. And he was right.
Yeah.
He said a lot of things that made sense. But so anyway, so I get to Notre Dame. Jerry Faust is the coach. We have an incredible amount of players. Our talent level is very high. You got to think in 1980, we win the national. They played Georgia in the national championship game and lose, but they had something like 18 of the 22 starters coming back the next year. I mean, at Notre Dame, we were stacked. Had a very good team. Jerry Faust is a good man, but he was not a great college coach. He came from high school. The program was a little bit disarray. Lou comes in my third year. So I ended up playing 5. So it was my redshirt sophomore year. And the only thing that changed was everything. I mean, Lou came in day one, kicked the guys, feet off everybody was slouched down, sitting in the meeting room. He ended up being our captain. Chuck lands his feet off the stage and said, look, when I'm talking, you sit up in your chair, you look me in the eye. This is going to be my way or the highway. These are your priorities in life. These are our rules. This is what we're going to do. 6 o'clock practices start tomorrow morning. And of course but the thing about Lou was all his the priorities of what he said.
Right.
What he said was important. Do the next right thing. Tell the people you love them. Trust, love, commitment. Your priorities are going to be God, family, academics, football, social life, something like that. Everything he said, though, for the next 3 years that I was with the man, he continues to say today, and all those things were right. he gave all these little kids a framework to how to be great football players, people, fathers, teammates, co-workers, and all those guys. You would not believe the success in life that the guys that I played football with have today. And then they passed that on to their kids. And now their kids are successful and whatever. It doesn't have to be in athletics.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm saying it's giving it your all. It's doing the next right thing. It's telling the truth. You know, all these little silly things that when you add them up, you end up in the right spot. So I got one more story I'm going to tell. I'm just going to keep talking about Lou because Lou's the best thing.
Keep telling the story. Keep telling the stories.
There was a guy that was a manager at Notre Dame when I was there. His name is Brian Fenton. You can look him up, and I may not have all his accolades correct. Nice guy. I was always very nice to those guys. The manager program at Notre Dame is very interesting. So these guys, like, I don't even know what the whole process is, but I think they have tryouts basically for the managers and cuts. And then over every year, it gets like cut down 50% until at the very end, whatever guys are left, they rank them and they are all the head managers of the different sports.
Wow.
So if you get to be one of the top managers at Notre Dame, you're probably going to end up being a pretty successful person. And all those guys have done very well in life and like crazy well. Anyway, Brian's in there. I don't know the guy, but I know who he is. We're not like personal friends, but I didn't know anything else about him other than he was a nice guy. And I always talked to him and, respected him, whatever. 25 years go by. I'm at a Notre Dame game and he happens to be walking in and he's got a real high and tight. He looked like something was like, he was a special person, but he's like, "Hey, Pritch, how you doing?" We talk and my buddy, he walks by and I would, whatever, we talk for 5 minutes. He goes, "You know who that guy is, don't you?" I go, "I have no idea." I mean, he goes, "You know what I said, "Yeah, I remember him from Notre Dame." He said, he is currently I think a 2 or 3 star general. He's commander of all special forces of the Asian fleet. He's got like 3 Purple Hearts. I mean, you look him up. Distinguished medal here, distinguished medal there. The guy's a total badass.
That's cool.
And
appreciate his service.
He was the advisor to Trump's security, whoever his national security advisor was. I forget the guy's name. Brian Fenton was this guy's first lieutenant. So he sat in all the meetings with Trump. He sat in all the meetings about, national security. He's clearly been around fighting men, warriors, and I'm building up to something here. When they were interviewing him, they said, "Who are the people that have influenced you most in your life?" And he said, of all the people he's ever been around in his life, that Lou Holtz had a bigger influence on him than any general, any person he fought with, anybody he's ever met or led. Lou Holtz was a special person. I think, my brother and I were talking about this the other day, and he knows how incredible Lou is. And when you're around Lou, there's just a different feeling about the way that he sees everything. He sees everything. He directs everything. It's a weird God-given. He's like on another conscious level than a lot of people are. People would say the same thing about like a Nick Saban. Saban's 100% the same kind of guy. And look at all these guys that are great coaches, all these guys that are great leaders. I was asking my brother, he goes, you only meet a few people in your lifetime that kind of have that aura and are just different. He goes, I can think out loud. He's like, I can think of Lou Holtz, Ted Turner, Billy Payne. I don't know if you know who that is. Brought the Olympics to Atlanta in 1996 and ran Augusta National. And I forget, he said somebody else, I can't remember, but I've been around Lou a lot. When we played, we were scared to death of him. I didn't want to be around him. If you were near coach, you were in trouble. But in the 40 years, 35 years that have gone by since then, we've, in all the different events that we've had, and we started this thing called Lou's Lads, which is now morphed into Holtz's Heroes. And I've been on the board for about 10 years. So I get to, I see coach once a year and we get to be on a lot of conference calls and stuff together. I just can't tell you how special the guy is. Mm-hmm. We filmed a documentary this past summer in Virginia at William and Mary. He coached William and Mary like I don't even know, the early 70s, late 60s. It's been a long time ago.
Yeah.
So he was being inducted into the Hall of Fame for William and Mary. And the players were, so we were filming, but we're filming this document about Notre Dame called From These Ashes. That's going to be about Lou. So we met him there. And we had the pleasure of being able to spend time with guys that he had coached at William and Mary that played football for him. They all had the same stories that we had. You know, these guys had all become successful, uber successful people 20 years ahead of us. And Luke, coach sits down with them and he starts recalling every game, all the games they played, the scenarios, down and distances, the plays he called, who was on the other side. Look, this guy he's a freak. I mean, I couldn't remember 5 plays from my last year at Notre Dame. I mean, maybe I could remember 20,
Yeah.
but I couldn't remember all the players that played. I mean, think about it. This is a guy that's coached for 50 years, going back 50 years or 40 years, now 50 years, and recalling games, plays. He can recall every game he ever coached, the score.
Wow.
That's incredible.
So anyway,
My father's gonna love this. He was so looking forward to having us have this chat.
Wow,
That's amazing.
What great stories right there. So for you, what was it like learning underneath him as a player? And obviously he brought a lot to Notre Dame history. And this explain his coaching style to our fans who don't know about him as a coach. Yeah, so tell our fans about his coaching style. What did he do?
All right, the first thing Coach Holtz said is my way or the highway. 1. 2, I'm not in a popularity contest. 3, first will be best, then we'll be first. You got to believe in the process.
Ooh,
So, yeah, I mean,
so good.
Guess what? What was that first thing there? Accountability. Accountability.
Yeah.
That has been lost in this world. Everybody has an excuse and a reason why they can't do a certain thing. Lou didn't. If you look, Coach K, Dabo, Saban, I guarantee you those guys have accountability. You don't, in a coaching environment, I don't care what the sport is. Parenting, my kids have accountability. That's why they are the people they are, because they're going to fail, and I'm going to let them know they failed and that they can do better. And that these are the rules. You can't just do whatever you want to do whenever you want to do. Hey, man, everything's great. That's not the world. That's not reality. They can continue to try to tell people that is. That's not the reality I live in. So that's number 1. That was taught by Lou Holtz. Lou Holtz basically let you know what the rules were and that there was no tolerance inside those rules. And when it came to mistakes, you couldn't make them. And we had guys that, I mean, he put an enormous amount of pressure on everybody. And, you know, I can remember we had a guy, I won't mention his name. He was a great running back. And he kept fumbling the ball in spring practice. And Lou said, I'm going to tell you right now, you fumble that ball again, your ass is going to play defense. And
did he?
He played defense for the last 3 years of his career. He fumbled again.
Oh my God.
I mean, you know, look, I'll give you a perfect example. So, like I told you before, in 1988, we beat, I forget the numbers. We beat Miami, who was number 1. We beat Southern Cal, who was number 2. We beat West Virginia, who was number 3. I think we played 5 teams that were ranked in the top like 7 or 8. I mean, there was no doubt we were national champs. But one of the biggest games of the year, which I told you was the Southern Cal game in LA, number 1 versus number 2, 10-0, 10-0. So our leading rusher that year and leading receiver are Ricky Waters, who had a great pro career, and a guy named Tony Brooks. They were sophomores at the time. So the night before the game, these guys, or maybe it was 2 nights before the game, are late to a meeting, like 30 minutes late. We sent them home. Lou wanted to send them on a Greyhound bus. They flew them back to South Bend. So our leading rusher and leading receiver, the biggest game of the year, got sent home. Wow. So, I mean, look, a lot of guys had a problem with that. We had but you know, that ended up being like a war cry. It was like a Braveheart kind of thing. I remember the guys coming in And, we took all the coaches out. It was just the players in a meeting, and guys stood up and said, it's next man up, and you're going to jump higher, run faster. It was all, that game was over in that meeting. Guys were crying, emotion. The game was over. We beat the snot out of them the next day. So, and they were 6-point favorites. I found out later.
Wow.
Anyway, I don't know. There's another thing Lou said. He always used to say, I'll be there whenever you need me. If you need me for the next 40 years, and this is what he always says. He goes, I told your asses I'd be there for the next 40 years. I just want to let you know your 40 years is up. But coach has always said, listen, if you need me, you let me know. And there's only been 3 or 4 times that I've ever asked him to do anything, and he's done it immediately. And he's done that for all the players that he's there, that he's coached. And what's interesting is I've become friends here in Atlanta, for example, with somebody that played for him at NC State, which was back in after William and Mary. He went to NC State and then Arkansas. And those guys feel about Lou like I feel about Lou. So everywhere he's been, I think those guys, as they become adults, realize how special it was to play for a guy that gave you a playbook about life.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't we do something like me not talk anymore? I can't really hear much.
Oh my gosh, Wes, this is so exciting. From the moment that Lou walks in and shakes everything up to the Greyhound bus, I smell movie.
Lou, from the second he walked in, the only thing he changed was everything.
Wait, now when
Everything.
you were so from the difference of you playing for him to him writing the referrals for Wall Street, was that a game changer for you and your relationship as far as your connection, your personal connection with Lou?
Yeah, I think that was the start of it. There's been many things since then. I've really, what's really funny, and he's changed, I think too. He's mellowed out a lot. Thank God.